Hi there. I want to show you this beautiful coffee cup. It's kind of mug shaped, a little small, but it holds plenty of coffee. My fella picked this up for me at Sur la Table here in Fort Worth. We stopped by there to pick up some kind of a cooking device. I don't remember now what we were after, but he saw these in there, so he brought me one. Pretty little thing. Alrighty, September 15, this day in history. We're going to start way back in 1254 when Marco Polo, the Italian explorer, was born in Venice in the Venetian Republic. 1789, James Fennimore Cooper was born. He was America's first best-selling novelist, born in Burlington, New Jersey. He became best known for a series of 5 novels called the Leatherstocking Tales, including The Last of the Mohicans, about frontier violence and adventure. At the time, most Americans read English literature about kings and queens because they thought it was more romantic than their difficult colonial lives. James Fennimore Cooper was the first American author to make the wild, untamed life in America seem romantic. I think he did a pretty good job of that too, by the way. In 1857, William Taft was born. From the time he was elected the nation's 27th president in 1909, Taft quietly continued Theodore Roosevelt's policy of busting monopolies in the steel and railroad industries and created the first federal Department of Labor to promote the welfare of America's workers. On this day in 1858, the new Overland Mail Company sends out its first 2 stages, inaugurating government mail service between the eastern and western regions of the nation. In 1862, Confederates captured Harper's Ferry. Now, when I first heard this, I thought they were talking about a ferry boat, like, say, the kind you could drive your car on to go across a body of water, like, say, the Ticonderoga Ferry. I've been on the Ticonderoga Ferry, by the way. You might find ferries in places where people cross water, but for whatever reason it's not practical to build a bridge. Like across Lake Champlain. I've been on that ferry too. Anyway, there may have been an actual ferry involved in the naming of Harper's Ferry, but it's a town in West Virginia there on the Potomac River. Well, it was Virginia at the time, became West Virginia later on. Confederate General Thomas Stonewall Jackson captured Harper's Ferry, Virginia, present-day West Virginia, and some 12,000 Union soldiers as General Robert E. Lee's army moved north into Maryland, cutting off the strategic town on the Potomac River from the rest of the Union Army. In 1890, Mary Clarissa Agatha Miller, better known as mystery writer Agatha Christie, was born in Torquay, Devon, England. Christie had an unconventional childhood. Her parents didn't send the children to school, preferring to keep them home and teaching them piano and violin. Christie taught herself to read at an early age, which displeased her mother, who felt that she had plenty of time for that later on. Later on. Her mother did enjoy scary stories, though, as did her older sister Madge, and the 3 of them delighted in making up thrilling tales. Christie married in 1914, just before the advent of World War I, and while her husband was away at war, she worked at a pharmacy where she learned a lot about poisons, knowledge that became useful in her books later on. On a dare from her older sister, she wrote her first mystery novel, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, in 1920. The book was rejected several times before finally being published and was only a modest success, but it did introduce the character of Hercule Poirot, an extravagantly mustached Belgian detective. Poirot would prove to be immensely popular with readers, appearing in more than 33 Christie mysteries, but Christie was tired of him by the 1930s. She wrote in her diary that she found the character insufferable and an egocentric creep. When she finally killed him off in the novel Curtain in 1975, the New York Times ran a full-page obituary for the character. Her favorite character was Miss Jane Marple, who first appeared in the 13 Problems in 1925. Marple was an amateur detective whom Christie based on her grandmother and her grandmother's cronies. When asked why Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple never appeared together, Christie answered, "Hercule Poirot, a complete egoist, would not like being taught his business or having suggestions made to him by an elderly spinster lady." After her novel, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, 1926, became an international bestseller, Christie was a phenomenal success for the rest of her life, writing more than 80 novels, including Murder on the Orient Express and 30 short story collections. Her play The Mousetrap, which was first written as a radio sketch for the 80th birthday of Queen Mary, is the longest-running play in history. It was first staged in 1952 and has been running continuously ever since. Christie was made a Dame of the British Empire in 1971, and her novels have been adapted for film, stage, video, games, and even anime. 1907, Ferry, a Canadian-American actress who played in King Kong, the original King Kong, was born in Alberta, Canada. In 1914, the first trenches were dug on the Western Front. In the wake of the Battle of Marne, during which Allied troops halted the steady German push through Belgium and France that had preceded over the first month of World War I, a conflict both sides had expected to be short and decisive, turned longer and bloodier as Allied and German forces began digging the first trenches on the Western Front on September 15, 1914. In the trenches. In 1916, you may remember that not too long ago we talked about the first tank rolling off the assembly line, Little Willie. Well, on this day, during the Battle of the Somme, the British launched a major offensive against the Germans, employing tanks for the first time in history. Some of the 40 or so primitive tanks advanced over a mile into enemy lines but were too slow to hold their positions during the German counterattack and subject to mechanical breakdown. However, General Douglas Haig, commander of the Allied forces at the Somme, saw the promise of this new instrument of war and ordered the War Department to produce hundreds more. In 1935, Nuremberg race laws were imposed. German Jews were stripped of their citizenship, reducing them to mere subjects of the state. And trust me, it only got uglier from there. In 1954, the famous Marilyn Monroe skirt scene was filmed. The famous picture of Marilyn Monroe laughing as her skirt was blown up by the blast from a subway vent was shot on September 15, 1954, during the filming of The 7-Year Itch. This scene infuriated her husband, Joe DiMaggio, who felt it was exhibitionist, and the couple divorced shortly afterward. In 1959, Nikita Khrushchev arrived in Washington, becoming the first Soviet head of state to visit the United States. During the next 2 weeks, Khrushchev's visit dominated the news and provided some dramatic and humorous moments in the history of the Cold War. In 1962, the Four Seasons earned their first #1 hit with Sherry. Sherry, Sherry baby, Sherry. I do remember that. I knew somebody that had a toddler named Sherry, and that little Sherry was a pill, so this song came out at the same time, and but I've met some Sherrys since then that are pretty nice. On September 15, 1963, a bomb exploded during Sunday morning services in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, killing 4 young girls: Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Carol Denise McNair. A well-known Klan member, Robert Chambliss, was charged with the murder and with buying 122 sticks of dynamite. In October of 1963, Chambliss was cleared of the murder charge and received a 6-month jail sentence and a $100 fine for the dynamite, although a subsequent FBI investigation identified 3 other men, Bobby Frank Cherry, Herman Cash, and Thomas E. Blanton Jr., as having helped Chambliss commit the crime. It was later revealed that FBI Chairman J. Edgar Hoover blocked their prosecution and shut down the investigation without filing charges in 1968. After Alabama Attorney General Bill Baxley reopened the case, Chambliss was convicted in 1977 and sentenced to life in prison. Efforts to prosecute the other three men believed responsible for the bombing continued for decades. Though Cash died in 1994, Cherry and Blanton were arrested, charged with 4 counts of murder in 2000. Blanton was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Cherry's trial was delayed after judges ruled he was mentally incompetent to stand trial. This decision was later reversed, and on May 22nd of 2002, Cherry was convicted and sentenced to life, bringing a long-awaited victory to the friends and families of the 4 young victims. 1978, Muhammad Ali won the World Heavyweight Championship. 1984, Prince Harry, that's Henry Charles Albert David Windsor, Prince of Wales, 5th in British succession, was born in London, England. Happy birthday, Prince Harry. In 1990, 13-year-old Melissa Benoit disappeared in her hometown of Kingston, Massachusetts, on her way home from a friend's house. The town detective talked to everyone who lived on the path between the 2 houses, but no one admitted to having seen Benoit. Soon afterwards, the FBI joined the search. Yet despite their use of tracking dogs, there was still no sign of the young girl. In an unusual move, the FBI asked neighbors to take polygraph tests. Henry Meinholz, a local Bible school instructor who took the test, did not appear to be truthful. Perhaps in a rather backward attempt to deflect suspicion, he made some frightening and creepy admissions that I won't detail here, because I know that sometimes children watch my videos. Anyway, because of the inconsistencies in his polygraph results, the FBI immediately began a thorough search of his house, where investigators found Benoit's body. Meinholz confessed, claiming that voices in his head had commanded him to kill. He tried to use this as an insanity defense. However, after a short trial, the jury rejected this insanity defense and convicted him of first-degree murder. As well they should have. 2008, the Wall Street investment firm Lehman Brothers filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, calling the S&P to lose more than 500 points by day's end and costing its 26,000 employees their jobs. Lehman's collapse was the largest bankruptcy in world history. Investors, including the pension funds of many middle-income Americans, saw Lehman's stock plummet 96% by the close of day. One of only 5 investment banks on Wall Street, Lehman was a 158-year-old storied institution that has survived all manner of economic crises, including the great railroad bankruptcies of the 1800s. As technology made trading stock easier, it became less profitable for large banks, and Lehman sought out riskier and riskier investments. They bought up large bundles of mortgages in a housing market that in recent years had seen a doubling and tripling of home values. A large number of these were subprime mortgages, sold to homeowners and investors that should never have been approved and were unable to pay them back, making them virtually worthless. Is that it? Okay, 2008. Well, alrighty, I'll put links, and I want to thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to share this if you found it interesting. See the links below. I've also included a postal address if you want to send happygrams or coffee mugs. See you next time. I know there's another page in here. Okay, that should help. 1934. On the Potomac River from the west of the Union Army. My mouth, please. All right, let's get that one again. That didn't read right. We might have to leave that one out. Lots of throat clearing. Maybe I'll leave that name out because I obviously don't know how to pronounce it. Department of Labor to promote to. Don't make me squeak that pig again. Mean mama.